And welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes Biomutant and Odallus.
Biomutant. I don't know. But I can't do anything with that title. It's just a regular game title.
It's just a reasonable video game title.
Yeah. Curse you, Biomutant.
It hasn't stopped me from calling it Bioshock for the last 3 days.
Bioshock? No. What's that? That's not a thing.
Things just get into my head sometimes. Speaking of things that are in my head, our 500th episode is coming up. Yeah.
You got some secret insight into our 500th episode ahead of schedule?
Are we sharing that? I don't think we're sharing that.
Oh. I was hoping you could share it with me at least.
A very special 500th episode.
Oh no, it's not one of those.
It's good. The music's gonna come up. Ba, 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 ba. Everyone will learn something.
All right.
I don't know.
I didn't think it was gonna be that kind of episode, and I'm a little worried.
Phone lines are open, though. If you, dear listener, would like to leave a message, ask a question, contribute to our 500th episode extravaganza in some way, you can do that by calling 682-999-VGH1. You have to get in touch with us before June 25th, though, if you'd like to be included in the show. So the clock is ticking, sort of.
Sort of. I mean, it is ticking.
Yeah. It's not ticking nearly as fast as it will be in 3 weeks, but right now, it's definitely ticking.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into it.
The other sort of little incentive I want to throw out is that DJ has personally volunteered to just man the phone lines 24 hours a day for the next week.
Oh, no, don't tell him that. I can't actually do that. I mean, I would.
If you ever want to have a conversation with DJ Ross at 4:30 in the morning, Pacific time, of course, you'll have to call 682-999-VGH1 this week and get him on the line.
It's like, if you're going to call me at 4:30 in the morning, why not just open it up to Eastern time or like British Standard Time? just 24 hours around the clock. Just call me anytime.
Yeah,
no,
wherever
please
you're
don't call me on the phone ever, please. No, but I can't answer this phone. It's just a voicemail. So
yes, it's true. Yeah,
don't want people to get their hopes up.
I know. I don't know how that got into my head, but I thought that would be a funny thing to throw out there. But yes, totally. We don't know how to answer that phone. It doesn't actually go to a real phone somewhere that rings.
Although I think, just as, to entice people a little bit, I think if you do call that number, neither of us pick up. You may be surprised who does. Anyway, just leaving it out there. If you want me to explain that, you'll just have to call the phone number.
All right. So yeah, do that before June 25th. That number again, 682-999-VGH1.
Yeah, we should probably figure out what we're going to do for that episode.
Yeah. I think we have an idea. We've gotten some ideas, actually. Some wonderful, creative, smart people from our Discord have floated a few ideas our way, and you and I talked about it. We like them, so
we know what we're doing. I feel like just doing this by the seat of our pants is our brand, so I'm trying to stick with it.
Gotcha. Excellent. As we count down to our 500th episode, though, we are looking back on some of the music that we've used over the years to sort of intro and outro our shows. What are we revisiting this week, DJ?
Oh, yeah. So on the way in, we had a wonderful intro track by Sasquatch from the Rex Rocket soundtrack, one of my favorites.
Nice.
And then we'll have some more classic outro at the end. So keep on listening. Don't miss it.
Cool. I apologize if you can hear fireworks because it's officially summer here in Pennsylvania. Downtown Harrisburg has just been alight with fireworks every night this week so far.
Just the traditional Harrisburg 24/7 fireworks display.
Yes.
Every May, June, whatever.
Yeah, sort of mid-May to kind of late September every year.
What happened to the cicadas? Aren't they worried they're going to hit some of the cicadas flying around with all these fireworks?
We don't have a lot of cicadas in Central PA yet. There are occasional sightings, but it's not nearly. I have friends and family in Virginia, and they have just piles of cicadas in their yard. I keep reading articles about dogs eating cicadas, which is disgusting. But no, not
I mean,
so bad.
Probably
with
full
the
of
cicadas.
protein, probably very good for them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I thought it was. No, I'm not gonna. That was a horrible story that I don't want to share.
Did you hear this thing going around? This is not related to anything, but you know the myth that bears love taking down beehives so they can get the delicious honey inside. That's just what bears do, right?
I've
They
heard that.
love
Yeah,
honey.
that's yep. Yeah.
I read somewhere that they're not doing it for the honey. They just want to eat the bees. So they just eat the whole thing like a big bee, I don't know, sandwich.
Hive
Sandwich.
and honey and bee sandwich. Yeah.
Just all of it. Yeah, they couldn't care less about the honey. They just want the protein.
It's like a croissant.
Oh, gross.
It's like a hive is like kind of papery, like a croissant. Get it?
Is it? I
I don't know.
suppose.
Maybe. I don't have a lot of experience with beehives.
No, I'm not eating them.
A lifetime spent not going outside during the summer.
Yeah, try and stay away from beehives. Most of the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I've seen them in movies and stuff, but
Uh,
no, I never heard that. I not a big eater of bugs. Obviously, it's not vegan, but it still would not feel compelled to eat a lot of insects.
well,
Yeah. We
Yeah,
like
I don't
watching
know.
Bear Grylls on TV sometimes, and inevitably he eats some poor bug somewhere. And I'm
Ugh.
like, why, Bear Grylls? You have a lot of money. I don't think it's necessary.
that's what he gets paid a lot of money to do, though.
Yeah, People pay Bear Grylls a ton of cash to eat bugs.
Somebody has to go out there and keep the cicada populations in check. So
Just
we should be
single-handedly,
grateful to Bear Grylls.
Bear Grylls just eating his way across America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every 17 years, he gets super excited. He just runs out there with like a lobster bib, except it's a cicada on it.
That's excellent.
Anyway, with apologies to Bear Grylls.
Yeah, so video games, DJ.
So
played
video games, please somebody rescue us from
Let's do
talking about
a
cicadas.
hard right
Oh,
into video games. Before we launch into the what have you been playing lately conversation that we have every week, I want to talk just a tiny bit about Operation Tango, which we reviewed on the show last week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think this piece of news came out like immediately after we finished recording last week.
I think so,
it's
too.
Very unfortunate timing.
Yep. So it's a cool game. DJ and I think both sort of had a lot of fun with it and endorse it. We do want to get back to it and actually probably stream some of it too, so for people can tune in and watch us hammer our way through the final couple of missions in Operation Tango. But it was announced shortly after we recorded last week that Operation Tango will be the free game on PlayStation Plus in June if you have a PS5.
Oh, is it only the PS5 version?
I've done minimal research on this, but I believe it's just the PS5 version. Yeah.
Oh, that's lame. I don't want to endorse this anymore.
Well, what you can do is if you have PlayStation Plus and only have a PS4, you can add Operation Tango for the PS5 to your library. And when you inevitably get a PS5, as most people hopefully, presumably, probably will do someday, you can download it then.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you have a PS5 now, and you actually have a friend who has a PS5, or actually it's crossplay, who has some other device that is also running Operation Tango, you can play with them for free.
Yeah, you can play on anything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you really just need your one PS5 friend to get it, and then you can play with them.
Correct.
Oh, well, so very generous.
Yeah.
Thanks to this this promotion, there should be hundreds of new Operation Tango players out there.
I mean, it's cool that it's a brand new game. It comes out on June 1st is the release date of the game. And if you have a PS5 and PlayStation Plus, you get it for free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. I hope it does very well for them, actually.
Yeah.
I know in the past there have been a lot of big successes around these sort of PS Plus deals. So it would be cool if this really takes off.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty cool tool for discovery. Inevitably, I don't know half the games that get listed as the freebie for PlayStation Plus, and will occasionally download and check out some of those games because the price is right.
Yeah.
And I found some fun hidden gems in there in the past.
Yeah, I've got them just piling up on my PS4. I'm sure. Actually, there've actually been some good ones recently. They had this kind of drought where it was some very questionable stuff going up there, but they may have turned the corner on that, hopefully.
Bug Snacks.
I mean, clearly they've turned the corner because they have Operation Tango on there this month.
Right, absolutely.
But hopefully they just continue along with those trends. Oh, no, Bug Snacks was the thing. I could not get the PS5 version, I think. I had to pay for that.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. That's fine, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to support those developers if you can, obviously, but free is nice too.
I don't mind putting down a few dollars for Bug Snacks.
Just wanted to update our listeners that if that game appeals to you and you do have a PS5, it is free for you this month.
Yeah.
So last week was a kind of a busy week for video games. I have more or less just been playing kind of indie games that appeal to me and things that I've downloaded in the past and never really got around to for the last, I feel like the last couple of months. But last week we had the release of Biomutant, which I was interested in. I've been sort of kind of tracking since I played the demo at PAX East last year. And then Shin Megami Tensei, I never know how to say it, 3 Nocturne, got a remastered HD edition that came out for lots of stuff. I think it's on Steam, it's on Switch, it's on PlayStation 4, and that came out last week as well. And I couldn't remember the last time there were 2, $50 to $60 video games I wanted to spend money on the same week.
So I have to ask, I plan to clear my schedule this episode and just dive in a full hour and a half into Shin Megami Tensei 3. You were playing the first 20 to 30 hours at least. But it's not on the list this week. What's
it is
the
not,
deal?
No. I feel like I've kind of spent equal time with both Biomutant and Shin Megami Tensei 3.
But you did start playing it.
I did start playing it, yeah. I actually started playing it before I started playing Biomutant.
So you actually, wow. So just dual fisting games this week.
I have been kind of, kind of consuming both. Not simultaneously, but, adjacently, I guess. Successively, I guess is the right word. I probably have spent the first 3 to 4 hours of Shin Megami Tensei, and I'm probably about the same point in Biomutant, which, 8 hours of video gameplay is impressive considering I have to work a full-time job and, do adult things. So
right.
I feel pretty good about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue playing both of these games and then obviously sort of focus my energies a little bit more into reviewing at least the first maybe 8 or so hours of Nocturne next week on the episode.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So clear your schedule for next week, TJ.
All right. I'm not going to play anything this week. It's just going to be all Shin Megami Tensei. We're going to get full spoilers. I don't know. That's not actually going to happen. Don't worry.
No, definitely not. Nope.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. That makes me nervous, actually. It makes my heart race just thinking about it. So you should play a video game this week.
It's just going to be a monologue. I'm not even going to show up.
You're right. What I Did with My Summer Vacation by Randy Dickinson. Yeah. So I feel like Biomutant's probably easier to kind of get the flavor of from the first few hours. Nocturne is a huge game, 50-something hours. Not huge like in the Persona or Dragon Quest sense of the word huge, but it's a pretty beefy JRPG.
I'm surprised it's like only 50. I thought this series was all about the triple digits at least.
Yeah.
But it's slightly older than more recent Persona 5 and all that.
Yeah, 2003, so 18 years or so, I guess.
Yeah. I wonder if somebody has compiled like the average JRPG length over the years, because I feel like late 90s, when I got into them, they were like maybe 30, 40 hours. And in the 2000s, they ballooned up to 50 or 60, and now they're just out of control. Like, who knows what's going on? But I would love to see that actual chart putting the average completion times in a line.
Yeah. You could probably assemble that by poring over all of the stats on howlongtobeat.com, but
yeah, that's true.
You want somebody else to do the homework on that.
Yeah, somebody else please do that. Unless I just get very bored this weekend, maybe I will look into it.
Excellent. But yeah, Biomutant. So this is where I have spent some time this week getting into this game. This is where to go with this from the start. A new game from a new developer. They're called Experiment 101. Did a little Googling on them, and they have a lot of folks on their team who had previously worked for Avalanche. So they made a lot of Just Cause games in the past. And also made that Mad Max game that came out a few years ago that a lot of people kind of like. So that is the sort of the pedigree of much of the team that has now formulated this new video game studio. It's crazy to me that a team of 20 people has made this game. It's a pretty huge, expansive, open world. What is it? Like RPG, action, kung fu, fable, like role-playing thing. Yeah. There is, and that is like the first couple hours of this game is just me trying to wrap my brain around all of the mechanics in this game, because you have a pretty detailed character creator. You have a very detailed like classification system. You have a huge crafting system that not only applies to existing weapons that you can modify, but finding parts to sort of build your own kind of bespoke weapons from scratch. And these are shooters and also melee weapons. There's a it's called Biomutant. So there are a lot of toxic things in the environment that you can sort of willingly subject yourself to that sort of warp your abilities and stuff like that throughout the course of the game. And there's a whole sort of upgrade system for those. All of your moves during combat have sort of upgradable and sort of ever expanding kind of list of kind of move sets that you have to hopefully remember or at least hammer your way through. So it's just a ton of systems in this game that it spends a lot of time in the first couple of hours trying to sort of, kind of meter them out, kind of explain to you slowly over a period of time. But it still is a little surprising to me how much is under the hood of this thing. One of the reviews that I read for Biomutant sort of referred to it as an ambitious mess. And that seems like a bit of a double-edged sword, obviously, but I can sense that in the first couple of hours.
I feel like it has been getting a lot of mixed reviews. Like, a lot of the major outlets kind of panned it, but there's definitely been this contingent where they're like, oh, it's kind of a scrappy B game kind of deal, maybe. Yeah.
That's probably fair. I think, I think it's more fun than it is, like, competent. That's mean as well, but it's, I like being this weird little rodent thing that I've sort of created, who finds cool little costumes and weird guns and, like, a sword made out of a plunger with a knife attached to the end of it. And... like, there's a weird sort of narrator kind of element to it where it's a British guy who translates everything the little critters in the world say to you. It's post-apocalyptic. Humans have ruined the earth. There was a company called Toxinol. That should be your first sign.
Doesn't sound good.
Who poisoned the earth and wiped it out. The critters of the world, the animals of the world have mutated and taken over. And there is now a new kind of ecological crisis on the horizon. And you are essentially a Ronin, a wandering warrior who goes from village to village trying to find allies to help sort of protect the tree of life. So there's a kind of a cool kind of environmental message to the thing. It's very sort of anti-corporation, which is refreshing, I guess, in a AAA video game. It's cool to be opposed to corporations as long as that corporation isn't publishing your video game. But again, there's a lot to this. It feels like, they threw a ton of ideas at the board, and nobody turned anything away. Like, there's no bad ideas in brainstorming, so they just packed everything into Biomutant, and I haven't spent enough time with it yet to sort of get a feel for whether or not it does any of those things exceptionally well.
I don't know. I don't know what I'd say about that.
Yeah,
It's been hard to just interpret everybody's reactions to this, just because it sounds like there's so much going on, and like some of it's good, some of it is not so good to bad, but people seem like generally like keeping an open mind about it.
Yeah. It definitely sort of draws from video games that I like. It definitely sort of feels like a little bit of Just Cause. It feels like a little bit of Fable. It feels like a little bit of what's the one that sort of it keeps coming to my mind? Breath of the Wild. I feel like every game feels like Breath of the Wild now. It's the go-to comparison for video games in 2021. But it definitely.
We're definitely past the sort of the development cycle where people were like, "Oh my god, we need to make our own Breath of the Wild." So it feels like all of those should be ready at this point.
They're finally done cooking this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sort of draws all of these things from video games that I really kind of admire, and have had fun with in the past. But I'm still trying to get a sense of whether or not it sort of does anything new or interesting with those things, or if it just feels like a kind of cobbled together mishmash of, hey, you really like this in video games, let's try it in ours. Yeah. Just today, just in the last couple hours of me exploring, it has finally gotten to a point where it's no longer kind of holding my hand and teaching me all of these mechanisms. It felt very linear in those first couple of hours. It was a lot of like hallways and stuff like that. You were kind of trapped in an underground bunker and kind of make your way out. And I have just now sort of gotten out of it, and I'm starting to sort of make some decisions. It's supposed to have a very sort of robust and responsive kind of good and bad duality thing that you can kind of pursue, and really kind of opening up combat now, where you have multiple enemies with different skill sets who represent sort of different tribes with different affinities, who inevitably always come with sort of a giant hulking brute that spits acid and fire at you that you have to evade while also trying to mop up the little guys. And only just now, 4 hours into this thing, I think, do I finally sort of feel like, okay, I get the combat system. I really feel like I'm sort of figuring out kind of the moves and how to best evade and avoid some of these things, where initially I just sort of felt like I was really just kind of spamming buttons and hoping to luck my way through some of these encounters. Only now do I sort of feel like I kind of get how I'm supposed to combine these things and how I'm supposed to sort of channel my attacks into the little guys that are kind of beating me up, while also simultaneously avoiding the attack from the big guy and saving him for the end. There is a sort of a Batman Arkham Asylum kind of thing to it, where the enemies have like a little indicator over their head where it's supposed to indicate that they're going to attack you next. So you're supposed to sort of parry at that exact moment. Totally missed that during the tutorial. Didn't figure that out until just today. Maybe it's coming together, or maybe I'm just getting better at it, but have started to just in the last 45 minutes of exploration and combat or so felt a little more competent at it and a little more confident with it, and started to have a little more fun with it.
Nice. You have a little Dark Souls moment. The gameplay kind of gels together. Yeah. That's cool.
I've never had that moment in a Dark Souls game, so I'll take your word for it.
Metaphorical Dark Souls moment.
Sure. But yeah, Biomutant is definitely having its Dark Souls moment.
How does the weapon crafting work? Are you like building based on like weapon archetypes, or are you really just creating your own like fighting style?
Well, you have a kind of a sloppy kung fu fighting style in this that is, the game calls it Wung Fu.
Okay.
And you have one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons. You have melee weapons and shooters so far. And you can kind of switch between a lot of them on the fly. Some of them come to you kind of fully assembled. You'll find them kind of hidden in places, or you'll loot them off of enemies. You can continue to modify them from that point forward and add kind of elemental effects or elements to them that do more damage and stuff like that. But there are also parts of the game where you'll find sort of bits and pieces, or you can take a weapon you already have and break it down into components and kind of rewire and reassemble those components into your own things. So you'll find like a broken sword blade, and you'll find, like I said, the aforementioned toilet scrub brush or a plunger or something kind of, goofy and innocuous left over from what they used to call what they get in the game they refer to as the before times. And you can kind of go into your crafting menu and attach those two things to each other, along with, some other elements. You can find a little battery pack that generates an electrical charge, so you can attach the plunger to this broken sword blade to the battery pack that generates electricity, and ta-da, you've created an electrical wielding sword plunger type device that you can sort of wield like a sword. So there are kind of archetypes to it, but it does feel like you're scrounging through the trash and picking up garbage essentially and trying to tape it to each other to formulate a cooler weapon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was going to be, or the way you first described the plunger with everything like duct taped onto it made it sound like some like almost spore like system where you just like, hey, this weapon's very long and it has a pointy end, and that you like figure out what to do with that information, which sounded very ambitious considering everything else this game was already doing. But
yeah. I don't think it's quite on par with if you can dream it, you can make it kind of video game philosophies, but it definitely feels like you're kind of piecing together these things on the fly in a roundabout way. So yeah, I don't open world games I've struggled with in the past. I think the last one that really resonated with me was the Phoenix Rising. What that what the game was called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Phoenix Rising. And that obviously had a lot of DNA that it stole wholesale from Breath of the Wild as well. So, maybe I don't have a problem with open world games as long as they steal from Breath of the Wild. So, yeah, this feels like you're kind of, making your way across a wide open land, and there's, villages and the ruins of cities and little tribal like warriors that have kind of splintered off into their own factions, and they're warring with the village across the river. And you have to sort of decide who to kind of barter with and deal with, and whether to accept somebody's help or back them up on an attack. And you do get kind of a light and dark thing where you have to decide whether or not some of these actions sort of align with your your worldview. And in fact, a little kind of black flying bat and a little white flying little angel thing pop up on your shoulders and duke it out every now and then when you're stuck in one of those little moments. We leave nothing on the table in Biomutant.
At least they're
all ideas are
upfront
accepted.
about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I haven't spent enough time with it yet to get a sense of whether or not it does any of these things well or with conviction or creativity, or if it just, to go back to the analogy from before, it duct tapes a bunch of shit together to try to make a video game out of it. It's certainly pretty.
It's been so long since I played a game that had those moral decisions. That was such a dark era in games, I feel like. Yeah. The only one that I sort of remember was just so hammy about it was Infamous. Yeah, and that's the one I always think of, because there was one where you literally had to blow up a hospital, or like that was one of the choices. It was like save the orphans or don't save the orphans.
Yeah, and if you blow up the hospital, all of the villagers, not the villagers, the people in the city that you were in would like then be angry at you and would throw rocks at you and stuff like that. I'm like,
Right.
well, who's blowing up the hospital? That seems like a bad choice. Yeah, it's just no shades of gray in that at all. And this is, there does seem to be some gray in this, in that it isn't sort of pure light and pure dark. There was somebody who asked me for help while I was sort of running around on a mission, and I was like, I don't have time, I'll come back later. And it sort of nudged me from kind of pure light to just slightly under light. There's like a meter to it. So
Oh, interesting.
it wasn't just bipolar in that sense. It wasn't pure light or pure dark. There definitely seems to be kind of shades in between. So you do, it appears, have the luxury of being able to kind of make kind of on-the-fly decisions that don't necessarily always sort of line up with being purely a good guy or purely a bad guy. But
Is that where the like Fable influence comes in?
Yeah, that and the narrator, I sort of feel like, is that Fable always felt like, I don't have a lot of experience with Fable games. I think I've really only played the second one. But I remember that having a very kind of storybook kind of vibe to it. And it had, if I remember correctly, a narrator who sort of like, filled in some of the in-betweens in the story as you sort of progress through it. Biomutant takes a lot of influence from kung fu movies, where you have sort of the lone ronin and the tribal warriors and the chiefs, and you have to sort of, make your way through the village to talk to the Sifu, to beg for their help and stuff like that. And they give you the tribal weapon to be able to take into combat. And so again, it sort of feels like, an old Jackie Chan movie in a lot of ways or something, but there is this sort of a effete British narrator who is, translating everybody on the fly through the game and kind of talking to you as you sort of make your way across the wilderness.
That does seem vaguely Fable-like, although I also don't have a lot of experience with those games.
Yeah. That was like sort of the last kind of, mental imprint I had of a game that felt kind of structured that way. So Biomutant. I don't know. Ambitious mess is the line I keep coming back to. It feels ambitious. It feels like they took a video game and put every kind of idea they had into it. Everything they liked about other video games, anything they kind of cooked up on their own during kind of pitch meetings, they kind of cooked into this soup. I think it's too early to say whether or not it would have benefited from selective editing, if it should have been curated a little more, because right now it just feels like it has kind of 500 simultaneous messages.
Do you feel like some of the stuff in it is just not working, or are they just not, or is it an issue that all these systems are not polished to the point that they could have been if there were only like a smaller handful of them?
I think it's the second thing. I think there was a point when I was playing through it yesterday afternoon a little bit where it was like, oh, you now have two, I forget what the game calls them, like mutation points. And I was like, okay, cool. What do I do with them? And maybe it explained them to me at some point, or maybe there was something I was supposed to trigger and didn't. I'm good at sort of wandering off the path sometimes. But I'm like, well, maybe it's in the menu. So I hit the menu and I went in and it said character. So I went to the character menu and I kept looking for like, where do I spend my mutation points? Couldn't figure it out. Still don't know where I'm supposed to spend the mutation points. And you
maybe you haven't unlocked the upgrade menu yet.
I don't know, but it made a big point of putting an exclamation point next to it and saying it in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, like I was supposed to do something with that information right away. And there have been maybe two or three things. Like I said, the thing with the sort of attack indicator from the other from enemies. Like I've played enough Arkham games to know what that symbol means, but I didn't know there was a parry button on the controller. So yeah, I think some of those things either are poorly explained or, haphazardly kind of implemented in such a way that I still don't entirely feel like I have a sense of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I mean, that can be exciting in a certain light if you're up for that sort of thing. Yeah.
I keep wanting to play it, despite all of this. I still find it has charm. I still like the weird little rodent type mutated character that I built. I still keep finding fun little costumes to put on him and stuff like that. And it's this push-pull between, well, he looks really cool in this hat, but this other ugly hat has more hit points. So do I want looks over function? And it's looks, of course.
Right.
So yeah, there are those dress up. I'm a big sucker for in video games anytime. Like I said, just today started to feel like I had a sense of what was going on in combat, and really started to feel like I was, I had enough cool moves, and I could remember enough button presses in a row, and I could do the parries on time, which led to some really fun takedowns, and just starting to feel like I got a sense of how the combat's supposed to work. So yeah, I find it compelling. I find I want to continue going back to it, but it certainly is not without its weird little proclivities.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like all the sort of weird, unexplained components of it are not like crucial to the game to the extent where you're like unable to progress or just having a miserable time.
Yeah,
because you don't fully understand everything.
No, it doesn't feel broken, and that's probably an important clarification to make.
Right.
It just feels like it's a lot, and I'm still trying to sort of learn my way through all of that stuff.
I just keep comparing this to my experience with Saga Frontier a few weeks ago. In my head, I'm just like, oh man, it sounds very similar, and that they were just like threw everything on the brainstorm board into the game without really like vetting all the like systems coming together.
Yeah.
But in that case, it really did feel like you had to go out of your way to like look up how these things worked, because they didn't explain them to you, and if you didn't really understand how to like master the game, you're probably going to have a bad experience. But it sounds like you're faring much better with this, so that's good. Yeah,
it definitely, it feels playable. It doesn't feel like I'm at a significant disadvantage for not knowing how to spend those mutation points or whatever. So I suspect it will come up again, and it will make itself much clearer. But yeah, right now it's just sort of been fun, kind of making my way through the villages, and I found kind of a ruined city that wasn't necessarily on the kind of the path that I was on. It was a little bit of a detour, so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to have explored it just yet, because this is the side effect of playing an open world game sometimes, is you wander off the path. But I found a bunch of cool pickups, and I found a cool little outfit for my dude to wear, and I found a little modifier that makes my little pew-pew shooter gun shoot much faster, and also shoot acid bullets out of it. So that has been definitely a lifesaver in some of the bigger combat moments. And it was just cool to kind of go through a ruined city and see kind of burnt out old billboards, and something that was clearly maybe a Starbucks once upon a time, but time and tide and the rise of the critters have taken over it. And it's just, I don't know. Again, there's a lot of kind of fun and interesting and very weird tangential things in this that I'm not sure if they will ever add up to anything consequential. But for now, it just kind of feels fun, kind of stumbling my way through.
Oh, just think of how much lore they'll be able to get into in Biomutant 2, though, if they don't, like none of this ends up panning out.
There is a point in the very early hours of this where you flash back to you as a child. So your little tiny weird little critter is even tinier and smaller. And your Muma, your mother, is a tribal chief herself. And she, has a very kind of significant environmental streak, and talks about how it is their duty as a tribe to sort of defend the environment and protect the tree of life. And so I'm like, this is ambitious. This is pretty far-reaching. And you, as a tiny little version of your character, then run around and learn combat moves from your mom, and on and on and on. You get to talk to your dad too, and he's a famous armorist. What's the right word?
So someone who makes armor?
Yes.
That's an armorer.
Yeah.
Armorer.
Doesn't sound like a real word. But he is that. So he teaches you how to sort of craft your new armor and stuff like that. So again, these could have been done through little cutscenes or through a pop-up probably, but Biomutant made the story choice to have you go flashback to your youth and actually play as a tiny child version of yourself, and wandering around your hometown village, and saying hi to your childhood friends before you became the wandering Ronin, and hanging out with your mom and dad and them teaching you life lessons. And I'm like, again, this is a weird detour. This is probably some idea somebody threw out at a meeting and they turned it into a video game. But it just feels like a lot of parts.
Sounds like somebody was really proud of their character customization system and how they could turn down a slider and de-age them and have them still be playable. And they're like,
yes,
how can we incorporate this somehow?
The dilemma is it's a third-person game, so you go from sort of being a diminutive character in the center of the screen to being just tiny now. So it's really just sort of head and shoulders running around the bottom of the screen because he's so little. I don't know. Just a kind of a cute but weird choice.
Yeah, kind of funny.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So it sounds like you're part of the faction that enjoys this game.
Yeah. I'm pretty tolerant of sort of messiness in video games as long as, the thing that you're doing, the lather, rinse, repeat of playing the video game is kind of fun and engaging. And thus far, it has been both of those things. So
yeah.
I can tolerate a lot of menu bullshit and over-explaininess and under-explaininess sometimes, as long as, when I get into combat and fights, those are fun and I know what I'm doing and don't feel like, oh, it's cheap and I died stupidly and things like that. All of those things sort of feel fun and quick in Biomutant, and makes the rest of the the stumbling weirdness feel tolerable.
Yeah, I feel like I'm, much more interested in a game that's on this side of the spectrum rather than playing the latest big AAA thing, where all the sharp edges have been sanded off, and instead you're just subjected to 45 minutes of tutorials at the start of the game, just explaining every little aspect of it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about calling Biomutant an ambitious mess is that it's ambitious, right? I think that's the important part. It is unfortunate that it's a mess, but it is trying so hard to do so many things, and I hope it does those things well. I just haven't spent enough time with it to be able to vote on that yet. But yeah, I choose to focus on the ambitious part of that.
Was it really a mess, or is it just a mess compared to other modern games? Because the stuff you've described so far, I feel like if it had come out 10, 15 years ago, maybe a lot of the issues people are having with it would be overlooked.
Sure, it would just be revolutionary at that point, right?
Yeah.
Possible. Probable, actually. But yeah.
I don't know. People are just so demanding when it comes to their standards in video games. A new game comes out and they're like, oh, it doesn't run at 144 hertz, and you have ray tracing on every surface. It's guys, you gotta adjust your expectations a little bit.
Yeah,
not every game can have a team of 2,000 people around the world building it.
That means so little to me that intellectually I understand what those things mean, but I don't give a shit, really.
Right, yeah, no, that's the thing I care least about. It's just how well does this game run on a technical level?
Yeah, some of my favorite games.
Does it run? Yes. Okay, good.
Are DS and 3DS games. So those are not, visual powerhouses. Those are not ray traced by any stretch. They're not even in HD. So, yeah, I don't, whether or not a game, is in 4K, I think has no bearing over whether or not it's a good game.
Mm-hmm. Well, good.
Yeah. We are aligned on that, DJ.
I don't even have a 4K screen. It would not, I'm not there yet.
So it's just playing Biomutant and Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD remastered back to back or simultaneously is just I don't know, tickling very different parts of my brain, because I was completely frozen at one point in Shin Megami Tensei and had to Google best alignments and loadouts for the Demi Fiend in Mega Shin. And I was like, holy crap, this is not my experience with Biomutant at all, where it's just you kind of hop in the driver's seat and just go out and do stuff. I feel like there have at least been two circumstances in the first couple of hours of Nocturne where I've had to put the controller down and pick up my phone and Google, what do I do when this happens? Because I don't want to make a choice I can't go back on.
Right.
And it would be nice to be
that's nice because you have the advantage of that game being 10 or 15 years old, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. And there's just a a fountain of information out there, and people who have very strongly held opinions about this game for the last 18 years. I don't know, there is something to be said for sort of a pick up and play kind of agreeable game, and it's unfortunate that I feel that sometimes in JRPGs, where I'm like, well, I don't want to make the stupid choice. I don't want to like get 19 hours into this and realize that something I should have done 18 hours ago has screwed me. I don't know. I feel like sometimes there should be a little more flexibility in video games, and they should be a little less rigid.
Yeah. I feel like that is just unavoidable in JRPGs, though. It seems like it's part of the experience, just stressing out over like, oh, this is going to be a bad decision, probably.
Yeah. But more on that for next week. I will continue to dig into that game and report back on it.
Okay, excellent.
A future episode.
Incidentally, I'm still playing Resident Evil 5, and just, man, like, the facial graphics and animations in that game are so terrible compared to, like Resident Evil Village, for instance, like, some of the best facial animation I've ever seen. And just watching these characters from, probably, like, 2007 or 8? I don't know. I don't remember when this game came out. Just try and emote on screen. I'm just like, that's creepy. That guy's not even a zombie. He looks like he's dead. But I love it. It's amazing. It's not like hampering my enjoyment at all.
Well, good. That's high praise indeed. I noticed that wasn't on our outline for this week, so I was wondering either he finished it or you're still working your way through it or bailed on it entirely.
Oh, I'm still into it. Yeah, I'm not still like not hating it. I'm just pleasantly surprised. There was a vehicle sequence I did where I was just like, oh man, well, these are always terrible. So I was just gonna give it a pass. Like, everybody loves to have a vehicle sequence, but I'm just back to shooting zombies in the head, so it's pretty good.
Good, always satisfying.
Yeah. Also pretty good, I played Odallus. I started playing Odallus, rather. This is... I'm a little late to this. It came out, I think, 2015 or 2016. But it is a retro-inspired sort of action platformer, which I think draws very heavily from the NES Castlevania games.
Oh.
So, imagine Simon Belmont climbing upstairs with a whip and probably getting knocked into an abyss by a flying Medusa head or something. I had to say, so this has been very highly recommended to me for a long time, and it's just been in my backlog since then.
Based on that point of reference? Based on, you like Castlevania games, you should like this game?
Oh, I thought you were talking specifically about the Medusa head, but no. I mean, you
Nobody
look at
would
it,
recommend that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows why people like those NES Castlevanias. I mean, I didn't mean to make that sound like there's no reason why anybody should like those. I'm just saying, maybe people like them for different reasons.
I'm with you. We're going to get emails, but yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. But anyway, no, it's like, people have been saying, like, I like retro games. This is a pretty good retro game. Maybe check it out. And just looking at screens, it looks like you can definitely see the Castlevania influence. You can kind of just from seeing a few screens, just understand how the entire game plays, just because those games, like, the visuals are so iconic. But for whatever reason, I just got around to starting it this week. I'm always really terrified when I get into a game that is, like, so obviously, like, wearing the retro game thing on its sleeve like this, and Blaster Master Zero recently, and that the Bloodstained NES game.
Oh, right.
That I'm going to start it up, and it's just going to be impossible. It's going to be so hard. It's just going to be frustrating from start to finish. And I'm worried about that sort of thing because I really want to enjoy a game like this, but I don't know if I want to just suffer through one like I did with the NES Castlevanias back in the day. But so much to my surprise and delight, this is it's pretty playable. It's definitely definitely much more forgiving than like Castlevania 1 on the NES. It is it's still tough. I mean, it's definitely tougher than like a modern game coming out today. Like it's probably going to make you work a little more than Biomutant. But I feel like that is like part of the expectation. Like, you don't want it to be just a pushover if you're going to play one of these games to begin with.
I think that is, I think that's an expectation of people who sort of desire to consume these kind of modern games that sort of ape a retro aesthetic or a retro, what gameplay conceit. If you're trying to make a game that sort of looks like an old Castlevania, it needs to bring that level of difficulty and occasional frustration, right? If it was just
or
a
at least
pushover.
like reference it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and give you a way of adjusting sliders and stuff like that to get out of it if you're not feeling it.
Yeah. Although this game, I don't think it has really difficulty sliders in that sense. There's like a normal mode and then there's a harder mode.
No.
And I think that's all you get. So I just put it on normal. I'm like, we'll see how this goes.
That seems fair.
Yeah. I'd like to play on normal and see how that is. But so far it's been good. It's actually been pleasantly challenging because it's not quite as clunky as those old Castlevania games, but like the way the character moves and the way he attacks and the way all the enemies attack just feels like it's a little slow and not super fluid, but it feels very deliberate. So a lot of it is just being patient and like waiting for an enemy to attack and then attacking when you have an opening and not just trying to sprint through every level and just slash guys with your sword as quickly as possible, because if you do that, you're just going to get shredded. So that I really enjoy. In fact, as much as I enjoyed Blaster Master Zero, I thought that game was probably too easy. It definitely had all the aesthetics of like retro games, which was very fun to revisit, but for a lot of it, I just felt like the enemies were not putting up much of a fight. Like, even the bosses in that game were a little kind of pushovers. So I like that I have to think a little bit more when I'm playing Odallus than I did when I was playing Blaster Master. It has like light Metroidvania elements. Actually, so let me start with the map. It's not really open world, but it's set up very similar to like Castlevania 3, where the game is divided into a bunch of levels which have branching paths within them, and so depending on how you finish a level, or like if you find a secret exit, I think you will end up in a different level afterwards. And so you can actually take several routes through the world to get to the end.
No, neat.
I'm extrapolating a little bit because I don't know if I found one of these secret exits, or, I've only found one exit out of each area so far, so maybe that was the secret exit and I missed the normal exit somehow. But at any point, you can just like save and quit back to the world map and go back and replay one of the earlier areas to look for the other exit or look for more secrets. Because you also find, as you progress, like different artifacts that will give you like new powers that potentially open up new areas to explore. Including my all-time favorite, the relic that lets you move heavier objects. So in every game you just run into a big rock and you're like, oh, it's too heavy to push. Maybe someday I'll be strong enough to push this thing, and lo and behold, a few hours later you find like the power bracelet.
Now, where was that rock?
You can move that rock. Yeah, and then you get the fun experience of just being like, so how many of those rocks did I see, and why didn't I write down where all of them
I
are?
should have wrote them down, exactly.
Yeah. So it's very forgiving. So even though it's not like an actual open world, it does feel a little bit like, after you finish the stage, you can kind of take a break and think about whether you just want to go on to the next stage, or maybe it's worth their while to go back and replay some of the older stages, check out some of those areas that were sealed off before, and maybe get some extra like heart power-ups and that sort of thing.
That is one of the sort of the conceits of a Castlevania Metroidvania type of game that I don't know. I sort of always have like this eternal like love-hate relationship with, where it's sort of like, okay, there's a weird pattern on the wall, or there's a rock I can't move, and I know I'm going to have to remember this for later.
Yeah.
And inevitably, a level or two later, several hours into the game, you get the ability that allows you to climb that wall or to move that rock, and you have to remember where all those things were.
Yeah. Fortunately, there are not a lot of different areas in this. I mean, not that I've been to already. So it's not like you unlock the double jump or something, and then in that moment you go, oh, how many rooms in this castle had a ledge that was too tall
Yes.
for one jump? It's just like, okay, I'm gonna free play stage 1, and if I find all the secrets there, I'm gonna go to stage 2, and it's just very discreetly like separated like that, which is nice.
I had a moment, it's back to my Biomutant, but related, where I was making my way across a catwalk through like an underground chamber, and there were little cubbies in the walls to my left and right, but like toxic sludge underneath, so definitely didn't want to fall into the sludge. But in one of the cubbies, I could see a little treasure chest. And I was like, oh, I have to remember this for later, because inevitably I will have some move or some tool or something that will allow me to kind of get off of my broken bridge to get to that little cubby. And I was like, I wonder if I have a double jump already. And if the double jump is enough to get me over there. And yeah, from the beginning of the game, what a gift. You get the double jump from the beginning.
Wow.
Didn't have to buy it, didn't have to buy a cool pair of boots to do it. Just from minute 1 of Biomutant, double jump activated, and I could get across the sludge to get over to the treasure chest. What a treat.
Man, I feel like you shouldn't start people off with a double jump. You gotta unlock that behind a boss or something.
I know.
Because it's such an amazing moment when you get the double jump. You can't just give it to people for free.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I still had the sense of like, oh crap, I have the double jump already, but still not quite as sort of well earned as beating up some bad guy and getting it from him. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you get a triple jump later.
Maybe that would be the quadruple jump, super rare. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Man, I think there might be a double jump in this. I haven't unlocked it yet, but that's going to be exciting.
Do you see little ledges you can't get to?
Occasionally, but I can't tell if it's like, if it's just a matter of not having a double jump, or do I need to like jump off a higher ledge from somewhere else? But there's a whole lot of ways I could see myself getting to some of the hidden areas in this.
Sure.
So I'm really enjoying it. Like, the bosses have been very good. A little bit harder than the Blaster Master Zero difficulty level. Had to continue on some of them a few times, but it's also very generous in how it like restarts you in an area. You do have like limited lives, which feels like, I don't know, obviously that is just, they probably toss it in there because games used to have lives,
right?
But when you lose all your lives, all it really does is kick you back to the beginning of the stage, and which sounds not great. But what I've noticed is that as you play through these stages, you'll usually like have to like find a key or perform some other task that unlocks a door or a shortcut to the level. And once you have done those will stay unlocked the next time you come back to the level. So even if you just completely wipe out on a boss and lose all your lives and get kicked back to the start, you can just proceed through that door you already unlocked the previous time. So normally it's just a matter of like making your way through a couple enemies back to the boss. So it's not too terrible.
Gotcha.
So that was nice. Looking forward to getting into a few more of the secrets, because it seems like I've got a whole list of I've got a whole like menu of artifacts that is blank except for the power bracelet, and I'm just like, oh, there could be just imagine how many more like artifacts could fit into this thing. And then I have my sword, which in the menu says level 1, which is very like tantalizing, like, oh, where's the level 2 sword? So just looking forward to figuring out what else I can do in this game.
Cool. It's cool that it teases you with those things, though, where it gets the brain spinning about inventory slots and additional levels for those weapons. It's very sly.
I think it's very clever. I was like, oh, level 1. My armor doesn't have a level number next to it, which after seeing it next to the sword, I was kind of disappointed. But anyway.
Yeah. What's the aesthetic? Obviously, Bloodstained and Castlevania sort of draw from creepy vampire movies and Universal monsters and stuff like that. Is Odallus sort of cut from the same cloth?
Yeah, it's very much in sort of the Castlevania aesthetic, just like spooky monsters, skeletons. A lot of the monster designs, just owing to the fact that it's all pixel art, so it's very low resolution, are just kind of like these indistinct sort of blobs, or like masses of bones or something. They just kind of look unsettling and creepy. Mm. But generally, like the art and the sprites and everything has been very good. If you like the way those old Castlevania games look, you'd probably be into this.
Cool. What are you playing this on?
I'm playing on Switch, but it is out on a whole bunch of stuff at this point because it's been out for a while.
Cool. I've never heard of it.
Might be. I'm not sure if it's you're into this type of game, but who knows?
Yeah, I much like sort of Castlevania and Bloodstained, I sort of admire that type of game more than I enjoy that type of game. Like, I like spooky things. I like, vampires and vampire hunters.
Sure.
Yeah, I sort of dig that about Castlevania and stuff. But most of those games have proven to be much more difficult than I'm equipped to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like the DS Castlevania games. Those are I think there's 3 of them, right? That I've played all 3 of those. I kind of like them all, some more than others a little bit, but I felt capable when I was playing those games in a way that I never felt with the older Castlevania games.
Did you play the Game Boy Advance Castlevania games?
Probably not.
Okay.
What are the subtitles on those? Is like
oh man, well the one I was thinking specifically of was Circle of the Moon.
No, definitely
which was slightly less sort of like RPG-ish than the later ones. I think that one was also a little bit more difficult than the later ones ended up being, I think. So that's why I was just curious how you fared with that one.
I think that they did a collection maybe of those games that came out on the Vita. Does that sound right?
I don't know
and
if they
I picked that up
released those GBA games.
No, really? Okay. I know there was like a Castlevania collection that came out on the Vita that was a grouping of some of the older ones, Dracula X Chronicles and stuff like that, Rondo of Blood. And those were...
That was a PSP game.
Okay, well, there you go. Way beyond my ability level.
Okay, yeah. No,
Could not hang, unfortunately.
That was more... that was a remake of... I forgot what that came out on. It was like... I'm totally gonna mess up the system. It was like only came out in Japan.
Oh, okay.
But it was more in the vein of like the NES, the like super old school ones than
Gotcha.
the Metroidvania style. Where I'd say this one, if you really like the NES Castlevanias, this is very similar. So definitely worth checking out if that appeals to you.
Cool.
So yeah, that is Odallus on Switch. Man, I'm just having kind of a retro kick lately. I got a few more of these lined up, so I'll see how many I can get through.
Neat.
Before I just get sick of just like, I don't know. So far, I can't
trying
really
to decipher pixel art on screens. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one because it's like, I don't think it's quite as authentic looking as like Blaster Master or the Bloodstained game. It's it feels like it lands a little bit between 8 and 16-bit. Like it's a very limited color palette, but they also apply these like a lot of interesting lighting effects. Still within like the 8-bit graphic style.
Cool.
So yeah, it's very very interesting to look at, I'd say.
Excellent. All right. Well, we should wrap this up, I guess. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join our Discord, hang out on the internet with us, and talk about video games and stuff. You can get a link to that at VGHangover.com as well. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you can get a podcast. And help us out by telling your friends about the show.
Yeah, that would be great. It really helps us get the word out. We want to give thanks again to Sasquatch this week for our intro music, and on the way out, you're going to hear a classic outro track by Ricky Hanmong, I believe from the Stealth Bastard soundtrack.
Yes. Yeah.
So enjoy.
I think Stealth Bastard eventually became Stealth Inc., right?
Stealth Inc. Yeah,
I don't think they would let them use the word bastard when it came to consoles. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep.
Also, I wanted to say, once again, head on over to VGHangover.com. You'll get full links to purchase those albums on Bandcamp if you're interested in hearing more.
Yeah, do that. All right, we'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya.